Rules for exponents, problems. In this video, we're going to continue from the previous video on rules for exponents. Except in this video, we're going to solve more problems involving the rules for exponents. Now, if you haven't seen the previous video, rules for exponents, I suggest you go watch that video first, then come back to this one. In this video, we're going to solve expressions using the product rule, the quotient rule, the rule for a power to a power. We're going to look at some problems that will require us to use a combination of these rules to solve the problem. And I'm going to show you how to solve an expression by changing the base. Let's get started. Let's look at this problem. 4 times 4 to the second power times 4 to the negative 1 power. Before we start the problem, notice that all three bases are the same, the number 4. Since the bases are the same, we can apply the product rule to this expression. We need to keep the base and add the exponents like this. After applying the product rule, we are left with 4 to the second power. At this point, we need to raise the base 4 to the second power. Doing so, we get 16 as the answer. Let's try this problem. 6 to the fourth power over 6 to the second power. Notice in this expression, the base are the same, 6. And this time, we're dividing instead of multiplying. We can apply the quotient rule to solve this expression. We need to keep the base and subtract the denominator exponent from the numerator exponent, like this. After applying the quotient rule, we are left with 6 to the second power. At this point, we can raise 6 to the second power. Doing so, we get 36 as the answer. Let's try this problem. 3 to the negative second power over 3 to the negative third power. Again, just like the expression before, notice the base are the same, 3. And we're dividing instead of multiplying. We can apply the quotient rule here as well. We need to keep the base and subtract the denominator exponent from the numerator exponent, like this. After applying the quotient rule, we are left with 3 to the first power. At this point, we need to raise 3 to the first power. Doing so, we get 3 as the answer. Let's do this problem. 4 to the fourth power raised to the 1/2 power. Notice that in this expression, we have the power 4 raised to the 1/2 power. Basically, a power raised to a power. Since this is the case for this expression, we can apply the rule for a power to a power to solve this problem. We are going to keep the base and multiply the exponents like this. After applying the rule for a power to a power, we're left with 4 to the second power. At this point, we need to raise 4 to the second power. Doing so, we get 16 as the answer. Check out this problem. 2 to the second power times 2 to the third power over 2 to the fourth power. This expression isn't any harder than any of the previous problems. We need to combine a combination of rules in order to solve it. Let's focus on the numerator for a second. Notice that in the numerator, we have the expressions 2 to the second power times 2 to the third power. The bases in the numerator are the same, and we're multiplying those two expressions. Since that is the case, we can apply the product rule in the numerator. We need to keep the base 2 and add the exponents 2 and 3 like this. After applying the product rule to the numerator, we are left with the expression 2 to the fifth power over 2 to the fourth power. Notice the base are the same in the numerator and the denominator. And now we're dividing these two expressions. Since this is the case for this problem now, we can apply the quotient rule. We need to keep the base 2 and subtract the exponent in the denominator with the exponent in the numerator like this. After applying the quotient rule, we're left with 2 to the first power. At this point, we need to raise the base 2 to the first power. Doing so, we get 2 as the answer. Let's try another problem. 6 to the negative third power raised to the negative first power times 6 to the second power raised to the negative second power. First, notice that the base for these two expressions are the same, 6. Also notice that we have the powers negative 3 and 2 raised to a power. Since this is the case, we can first apply the rule for a power to a power. We need to keep the base and multiply the exponents like this. After applying the rule for a power to a power, we're left with 6 to the third power times 6 to the negative fourth power. Notice that the base are again the same, and we're multiplying these two expressions. Here we can apply the product rule. We need to keep the base and add the exponents like this. After applying the product rule, we're left with 6 to the negative first power. At this point, we need to make the negative exponent positive and raise the base 6 to the first power like this. Doing so, we get 1 over 6 as the answer. Let's do one more problem. Let's solve 2 to the fourth power times 4 to the negative first power. Before we attempt to solve this expression, notice the base 2 and 4 are not the same. So to solve this problem, we must change the base so they are the same. Take the expression 4 to the negative first power. We want to change the base 4 to a power of 2, like this. Here, all we have done is change the notation of the base 4, because 2 to the second power is 4. After changing 4 to a power of 2, we are left with the expression 2 to the fourth power times 2 to the second power raised to the negative first power. Notice the expression 2 to the second power raised to the negative first power. We have a power raised to a power. Since this is the case, we can apply the rule for a power to a power. We need to keep the base and multiply the exponents like this. After applying the rule for a power to a power, we are left with the expression 2 to the fourth power times 2 to the negative second power. Now we can apply the product rule because we are multiplying two exponential expressions with the same base. We will keep the base and add the exponents like this. After applying the product rule, we need to raise the base 2 to the second power. Doing so, we get 4 as the answer. Now, if you found this video helpful, hit that like button. And if you have any questions, leave those in the comments section. Remember, algebra is simple when you start with the basics.